It's January 2nd and we're just about to start the van build out, or rather tear down. This is our current 1990 Dodge van.
B250.
You gotta be specific.
It's pretty sweet. I actually hate to rip all the seats out because it's in basically perfect condition, but the seats are in the way of basically all of our plans. The back bench has a motor, I guess, built in, and there's a little panel behind here, and the whole thing folds out into a queen bed. But I found someone on Craigslist that wants it, and they're also going to take the curtains and the blinds. We're going to seal up the windows for insulation and cut a hole in the ceiling for a skylight, so that will be our primary light source, and the only remaining windows will be in the back and on the side barn doors here. So we're gonna start pulling the seats out and then mock up a design in cardboard boxes, and we will come back then. So we got one of the seats out, and Laura is pulling apart, I don't even know, this little valance for the curtains. Get rid of all the oak stuff so we can get back to the side panels. A little bit of electrical there holding her up. This is an important step when you're taking stuff apart, because right now the wires are up here, but when we pull all the panels off, they might end up somewhere else. So you want to label where everything was. I'm just going to cut these off. The power's off. So I'm going to use my dikes. That's diagonal cutters, or you could also use electrician's strippers, and just cut them. And then label it with some blue tape so you remember how everything went back together. Another important safety note when you're undoing electrical or cutting anything, it's always safest to cut one wire at a time. We have the battery totally disconnected, so it doesn't really matter. But just like complete the circuit. Exactly. Okay, so these bolts are kind of annoying. They're through bolted all the way down through the bottom of the chassis. They're pretty long, and there's a nut down on the other side. So what I've done is attached a pair of vice grips. I'll show you to the bolt on the underside. Right here, kind of dark, but there's a bolt back there. And as I turn the wrench on the top side, it's gonna just knock against this bottom frame member and hold it tight. And it's like, you know, 2 inches hanging down, so it's a lot of turns. It's kind of rusty. So you can either have one person on the top and bottom if you don't have a set of vice grips, but vice grips are the way to go. So another important step when you're dismantling is to put all the bolt, bracket, nut washer assemblies with their counterparts so you don't lose them. These are the hold down brackets for the rear bench seat, which is all unbolted and about to come out. So while Laura is pulling apart the window trim out, I'm going to start on the interior panels. And I think the first step is pulling these out. I have a little flat bar. We'll see how it goes. A lot of times they break, but we don't really need to save them. Last one. Sweet. Kind of surprised to see that Pink Panther fiberglass insulation, but whoever did the original conversion did put some in. Problem is these single pane windows are really just inefficient and totally uninsulated, so it kind of doesn't do any good. We're going to cover them up with some new insulation and board up the walls. Okay, so we have all the interior panels removed, ceiling and walls. I've ripped up most of the carpet. I've left this little bit so that I can do a transition to what will probably be a wood floor eventually when the time comes. We got all the bolts removed for the seats, except that last one, which is frozen. So I'm going to use a grinder and just chop that away. And then we will start laying out and talk about how to frame this to maximize space. Okay, so we have a bunch of cardboard here that we're going to cut up into little cubes so we can mock up the cabinet layout and figure out how to use the space. But first I want to talk about the framing. So this ribbing here is curved. I don't know, can you get a better angle on that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of lumber, 2x6 or something. I'm going to hold it flat against this. I'm going to trace that arc. And then I'm going to cut that arc using probably a jigsaw. And I'm going to transfer that onto a bunch of other pieces of lumber. And then wherever I want framing, I'm going to push it tight, mark what it's touching, cut that out, and continue that process called scribing all the way until this and all the framing is coplanar. And that's going to give me a nice, just easy, straight set of framing to put my finished boards on, which will probably be tongue and groove something. I haven't decided yet, but yeah, so that's that. We'll be back with cabinet boxes. Okay, so we're mocking up cabinets with a cardboard. It's not very pretty, and there's kind of like where the cardboard was bent, we had to reinforce it, but it gives you a general idea of the space. So I'm just going to try to continue this line over. The cabinet depth, I want about 20 inches. There's this natural line here from the last bend. That's 28. So I'm just going to come 8 inches off the end. That'll leave 20 in between. Mark your straight line. Score the top layer with a knife. I need to bend it. And that is that back top portion. And then we're 30 inches off the ground. It's 25 to the last line. We want to come an additional 5 past. So that's the height. And we're gonna have to reinforce this because that joint's so close. That's basically it. We'll just tape this up and come back. Okay, so as it turns out, cardboard is really hard to work with, and it's kind of a crappy, flimsy medium, and I'm done with it. But we do have a pretty good representation of, there's a 32-inch cabinet, 30-inch cabinet, figure out what height we want. We're gonna put a skylight in here, which will allow us to stand. We're about 5'7" on a good day, so we don't need it to be too tall. Taller people will never be able to fit no matter what. But this van worked pretty well for us. So basically this line is gonna come all the way across. At the back, we're gonna have a closet that goes all the way up. Next to it, a pantry that goes all the way up, and it's gonna drop down to countertop height, come all the way across. I have a couple burners, a little spice rack, and then the electrical cabinet will be up here. Propane underneath, battery bank in here. We have a couple of vents that will go in, and whatever space is left over, we'll hang a couple of solar panels to run half of the electrical system. We'll also do an isolator off of the main battery so that it can charge while it's driving. So we're going to clean up for today and I'll show you the rest of the details on paper.